Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Everything Went Black podcast. I'd like to welcome Baron Misuraca to the show this week. He was the original bassist in legendary New York hardcore band Sheer Terror, as well as playing in bands such as Darkside NYC, Vasaria, Desecrator, and most recently, Carnivore AD. In addition to all the cool musical stuff, Baron is the host of Cemetery Cinema, the host and curator, actually, of Cemetery Cinema, a monthly horror event that takes place on Coney Island. It's a lot of fun. I've been to a few myself. I plan on going to more in the future. If you're into obscure black and white horror, this is for you. We talk a lot about that, as well as comics, his acting, that sort of thing. So enjoy. If you're listening to this, it's likely that you also listen to the other podcasts brought to you by the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. Kicking things off, every other Monday, we've got Horror Wolf 666 brought to you by Brandon Legion. Up next on Tuesday is Jackie Smith's Into the Necrosphere. Wednesday, of course, is Everything Went Black, as well as Iblis Manifestations. Thursday is Necro Thursday for the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast, as well as Day 1 of Soul Knocks, brought to you by Carl Hikara. Friday brings us Spitball Media. Saturday is a day off, but Sunday, Carl returns with Soul Knocks. If you like the show, thank you very much for listening. If you want to step it up a bit, you can join the Everything Went Black Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You get access to bonus material. For $5 a month, you get all the bonus material, plus early access to the shows. And for $25 a month, you can become a sponsor. Thanks for coming on, Baron.
You're very welcome, Michael. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Where to start, man? I mean, you've been in tons of great bands. And then, of course, there's the thing which most recently I've become a fan of is the Cemetery Cinema events that you've been hosting.
Excellent. You have very good taste, I must say. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Sheer Terror is, one of the legendary New York hardcore bands, and you were the original bass player, correct?
Yeah, sure was. Going way back to the year 1884, I believe it was. I basically co-founded the band with Alan Blake, the original guitarist, of course, and Reed, the drummer. They were part of a band called No Control. That's for the real hardcore aficionados, if they remember No Control. That goes back even before Sheer Terror. And then Blake had gotten the idea to kind of take things to a little bit more of a metallic metal kind of direction, the Celtic Frost influence, that kind of thing. I was just learning how to play bass at the time. Actually, I had only been playing 6 months. And I had an ad that I put up in the music store, Guitar City in Brooklyn. I think it was Fort Hamilton Parkway, if anybody remembers that. And then it was Blake on the phone, and everything worked out pretty well. We rehearsed as a 3-piece for a while, and then of course we brought in the one and only Paul Bearer at the end of '84, and the first gig was in February of the following year, and it was a very exciting time in the music scene and the hardcore scene. That's when hardcore and metal were first starting to cross over. Everything was kind of being done for the first time, it seemed. Very, very exciting stuff. The hardcore matinees on Sunday were going full force at the time. There was so much going on, you don't want to miss any of it. And we were there for all of it. And luckily we premiered the band, and everyone had a very positive reaction to it. And then things started to grow and grow and grow. Make a long story short. Back in the day we opened up for all our favorite bands, the Circle Jerks, Nuclear Assault, running the gamut from all the, as punk as you can get to as metal as you can get. Carnivore, that was one of the highlights of my time in the band, opening up for Carnivore at CBGB's. That was really something else. I remember I didn't have any equipment at the time. I would actually do shows and just borrow everyone's equipment. And Pete graciously loaned me his gear. He was kind of confused that I would have the audacity to do shows and not have any equipment. But he was like, "You do shows, you don't have any equipment?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "We got to get something to play with." I'm like, I will, I promise. And then of course I ran out and did. But it was a great time. It was a very special time. And I'm very proud to say that I came out of that scene, came out of CBGB's, I always say the way kids today have the School of Rock, that course or that school. CBGB's was my School of Rock
Yeah.
back in those days, and for a lot of people as well. So eventually, I departed sheer terror to start singing and get into more thrash, more of a metal kind of thing with a band called Desecrator. Around 1986, that's when one of the great years for metal. So much was happening, and I was just so enthralled by everything that was going on. The records that Slayer were putting out, Celtic Frost, the list goes on and on. So that prompted me to kind of, move ahead and take things in that direction. But we've all remained good friends throughout the years. As a matter of fact, Carnivore AD did a little tour with Sheer Terror right after the pandemic, which was a lot of fun. That was a real stroll down memory lane and quite a trip for me to be, once a Sheer Terror member, now fronting Carnivore AD. So it was a pretty great thing. And
Yeah,
in closing,
carnivore.
I'm sorry,
The carnivore AD thing started like what, like 20. That started before the pandemic, though, right? Like 2017, I think.
2017, yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it was
And
like
yeah,
Black and Blue Bowl, right?
well, that was something that one of the former members had done separately before it was actually Carnivore AD. And then after that Black and Blue event, then it technically became Carnivore AD. Long story
Gotcha.
short, so there was different aspirations and carnates at the time. But Carnivore AD began when a crazy friend of mine, Kirk Farrington, who used to be a former member of Bile, for all the industrial fans out there. One day he just said to me that I should contact Louis Beato and and create a new version of Carnivore. I thought it was either he was out of his mind and who would have the audacity to attempt something like that. But then I gave it some thought and I made some videos of myself performing excerpts of some of the Carnivore tunes. I remember doing like 3 a.m. Middle of the night in my living room or whatever. And I sent them the demos that I did, and we keep in mind we had all known each other from the 1980s when when the bands had played together and all that. But as a matter of fact, if you see on the back of the Retaliation album, I know I'm digressing here. On the back of the Retaliation album, they actually thank Sheer Terror and the Crumbsuckers, which is where the current guitarist that's been working with us, Chuck Land, of course, his band, and also Whiplash is thanked as well. Joe Cangelosi, our drummer, is a former member of that. So just saying that to illustrate that we all kind of went back and we had the honor of being thanked on their records. These same guys here. So so it might not have been that audacious for me to contact them, but they thought what I was doing, was had a lot of potential, and then eventually we actually finally got together and played, myself and the two original members. And we did a show at the Bowery Electric 2017, and that was basically the beginning. I make a long story short, and here we are today.
Man, Pete Steele is literally and figuratively are some. Those are some pretty big shoes to fill, man. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that a lot of times, but I don't look at it like I'm filling anybody's shoes. We
Yeah.
just we're recreating the sound by our old friends, people that came out of the same scene that we did. So it was never looked upon like anything like that, like filling shoes or taking anyone's place. I mean, Pete is irreplaceable, probably the most irreplaceable musician ever born. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but so it was never looked upon as that.
No, I mean, I think like Pete Steele is definitely one of the most unique artists, really, that come out of that time. I mean, he like, you know, Carnivore and then Typo Negative, of course, are like very unique in sound and approach.
Yeah,
And
no question about it. You
and
can't get
the
any sure, you can't get any more unique than that. There's no question about that.
in
So
it's like dead serious, but then also there's this like dark humor element sort of flowing through it that gives it its like an on no one's really approached music that way, if you ask me.
definitely not. No one had approached it before that, and nobody has approached it since. And I don't think anybody can approach it, to be honest. Um, with Carnivore, it's almost like Pete's a barbarian, but he's also like an intellectual as well. There's elements of the two that are in there. If you really get into the lyrics, like I did, like I had to,
Yeah.
you realize there's a lot. It's very cerebral, and there's a lot going on in there. But then on flip side, there's like it's the most brutal thing you've ever heard.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's well, yeah, it's coming from two very different places from a mental framework, which is a total mind blower, I must say. And to say that this is the biggest honor of my life doing this is definitely an understatement. And it's great that it's been a couple of years later and people are still interested. So we're just gonna keep on doing it. Like I said, recreating the sound, not replacing, not filling any shoes.
Yeah.
But I mean, that whole filling shoes thing is actually kind of funny. I remember when we first started doing it, the Metal Sucks website,
Yeah.
they're famous for their sense of humor. I remember that there was a little bit of a write up on it before they even heard the band or even knew who I was. It said something like, "Well, if Baron Misuraca thinks he's going to be able to fill Peter Steele's shoes, he's going to have to start stuffing his shoes with padding or something silly like that." I had to laugh out loud when I read that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a great thing. The shows are there's a lot of positive energy at the shows, a lot of nostalgia. You know, I always say we're doing this for the people that were there, like myself and my bandmates that wanted more, and also for the people that weren't there and wonder what it was all about. So that's kind of something that we kind of keep in mind here, and we take it very seriously, and we recreate the music the way that the composer intended it to be played. And the band is really all about those guys and not really so much all about us. So yeah, it's a very personal and very serious thing. And again, we're grateful that everybody's still interested. You know.
Also, I'm also quite into Vasaria too. I thought that was a really cool band. Not sure too many how much you remember that, but that was like, you know,
I'm trying to forget. No, no, no. Go ahead.
no, I like that. That was all these different connections sort of coming together, like the things that I like too. I mean, I like metal, I like sort of gothic stuff. The dark stuff is really the kind of stuff I'm into.
Yeah,
You know,
same here. As long as it's dark, I think it could be goth, it could be metal, it could be punk. But that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I think where you're coming from as well.
yeah.
Usually, hardcore and goth are not, intertwined or anything like that. But I guess in my case, they kind of were. Um, yeah, Visaria was kind of like a goth metal kind of project, incorporating a lot of different influences based on classic horror films. It was almost like the sonic embodiment of the images you might have saw in a lot of the old movies. The band featured Chuck Lenahan once again, who's the guitarist in Carnivore AD from the Crumbsuckers. Yeah, that was something I was doing for a while. That was definitely my baby, some baby, But
That kind of leads into probably like one of the more active things that are going on right now is the cemetery cinema, like horror events that you're hosting.
yeah, yeah, right on. That's like my pet project right now. It's really a blast. I really enjoy it. It's a very different thing than anything I've done in the past. Something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be like a horror host, um, a male version of Vampire or something. Maybe that's a scary image. I don't know, but yeah, something I always wanted to do. And one day I just woke up and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pursue this and I'm going to make this happen somehow. And
So how did you make it happen? That's what I'm interested in that. It's like such a great idea. And my wife's one of her best friends like told us about it, and she's like, "Oh, you guys are this is exactly the kind of thing you'd be into. It's like a fun night." So we all went out. We got dinner beforehand, and we went out to Coney Island and we checked it out. And
awesome,
it was a great time.
cool, very very cool. And thank you for your support. It was great meeting all you guys there. That's
Yeah,
how we ended up to where we are now. But I guess the whole thing started. I just thought about what it would entail. There would be a discussion afterwards, etc. We're focusing for the most part on public domain films, although that's going to be changing soon without saying too much. I've got a whole arsenal of films that I wanted to show. The original Nosferatu, Phantom of the Opera, Night of the Living Dead. These are all films that are in public domain.
yeah.
For those who, out there that are listening that aren't familiar with the term, that's basically films that don't really have any copyright or trademark. So therefore, anybody can do anything with them. For all different reasons. The trademarks and copyrights weren't renewed. So there's a tremendous repertoire of those films that are out there. So I pretty much got the mechanics of the idea together, and then I contacted some promoters, most noteworthy, my old friend Adam Ryan from Coney Island, USA, who's the art director currently. I proposed the idea to him. He thought it was great, and we just did it essentially. And this was in 2022, and we've been doing it monthly ever since. So, I mean, Coney Island is the perfect place for something called cemetery cinema. It's every day's Halloween in Coney Island.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. So it worked out perfectly. The numbers are starting to grow and everything. We're coming up with all sorts of crazy little things that we've added to the show, like the best scream contest, for example. You know,
Yeah, one of these
definitely.
days I'm gonna jump into that. I think it's that's a lot of fun though.
Sure.
There's some serious lungs that are on display during the Great Scream contest.
Yeah, yeah. There seriously is no question about that. It's very hard for me to come up with a winner. You know, everyone's a winner in Coney Island, like I say. So sometimes I delegate that onto some of the to some of the staff or the audience members. But yeah, yeah, it's been great. Feel free to jump in there. It's a blast. The perfect way to end off the whole performance. You know. And again, I mean that theater is something else. The side shows by the Seashore Shore Theater, excuse me. That building is over 100 years old, so the history is just everywhere. You could almost feel like the old souls everywhere. You know, if you think of the generations of people that have been in there all this time, it's really that in and of itself is an attraction. So yeah, it's the perfect place for it. Very old school looking kind of theater. Um, we got like candelabras, we got coffins, you name it. So it's really great. It's my happy place. Not to sound too silly here. It's something else. And again, I'm so grateful that the public has responded as well as they have with that, and that we're still doing it. And we're we're just I feel like we're just getting started. We're just scratching at the surface here. And a lot of great things are in the making coming up.
Officially,
So
when did Cemetery Cinema start officially? Like when was your first event?
that was 2022 in July, I believe it was. Night of the Living Dead was the first film.
Oh, it's a
Great
perfect
place to
movie.
start, obviously, you
Perfect.
know. Yep, and then Nosferatu followed, and here we are now. So definitely has come a long way.
You know, it's funny. I just watched Last Man on Earth and Night of the
Ah,
Living Dead as like a double feature a few months ago.
a lot of
And
similarities between the two films.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. They go kind of hand in hand in a lot of ways. Is that is Last Man on Earth in public domain?
Yeah, it certainly is, and we've had the honor and the pleasure to have shown it once at Coney Island. I've shown it in some other venues. I also do cemetery cinema at other venues and special events like Dark Force Fest, the big goth festival that recently took place. Again, I'm digressing. We're all over the place here, but yeah, that
That's
is
what this
public
is all
domain.
about, man. It's digression. This whole thing is tangents, so it's all good.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm in the right
Yeah.
place at the right time then.
Yeah.
But yeah, public domain, and that actually came first before Night of the Living Dead. And if you notice, the zombies were very similar. The slow-moving zombies with all the black eyeliner on and all that kind of a thing. So George Romero, I know pretty much had to have seen that film and definitely got some influence and inspiration from it. There's no doubt about that.
Because going back to the 60s, if you think about zombie movies, prior to that, they were more of like the voodoo zombies.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was Night of the Living Dead that really kind of showed the zombies a more modern day thing. But the fault of man's technology that went awry and was misused. It almost has a social statement, a political statement, et cetera, as
Yeah.
opposed to the traditional zombie folklore, based out of places like Haiti and places like that, where the zombies are um, just catatonic slaves, essentially.
Right.
It was just created to work. So it's a very different and created by some sort of a black magic, old school voodoo kind of a thing. So yeah, it was Romero that definitely changed that completely. And the rest is history.
Yeah. No,
Brings to mind
it's
the film. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to go ahead. I mean to cut you off.
That's okay. Brings to mind the film White Zombie, of course, with Bela
Oh yeah.
Lugosi in 1933. That's totally about the zombie mythology. It's the origins of the zombie mythology.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really ran quite the gamut. All they do say that a lot of what we saw in White Zombie is more maybe an allegory for slavery in general. it's read into in you know it has that angle. Some of the older stuff, but I guess all in general, it all just focuses upon the human condition. It seems to be more than anything else. How man is always going to basically fuck everything up at the end, which is what we see in Night of the Living Dead, for example. So yeah, there's a lot to be said in there, and there's a lot of message in these films and in most horror films in general. I think, you know.
So when did you what was it about horror and like when did it sort of compute with you? Was it at a young age? Were you scared
Oh yeah.
originally? You know, there's something that you were uncomfortable with or you jump right in?
Actually, I wasn't scared. I found horror to be very soothing. Maybe I need to consult a psychiatrist or something. I don't know, but yeah, it all pretty much. I think it all started with the Count on Sesame Street
Okay.
when I was, you know, a toddler. I always found him very, very intriguing. And my mother always told me that I would watch the Dark Shadows reruns of the Dark Shadows TV show, which I don't even remember. You know, when I was in the crib. So it all kind of sprung out of that. And then as I got a little bit older, you might recall that they would show a lot of the old films on television those
Yeah,
days on the weekends. So I would watch
dude.
them with my father. You know,
That's some of my favorite memories of childhood. They would
yeah,
have and I remember like they would have the 4:30 movie during the week.
right. They would have the Planet of the Apes week.
Yep.
Always a great week.
And then one of the most memorable ones though was the Vincent Price, Edgar Allan Poe, like,
Oh
Mask of the
yeah,
Red Death. That I remember like watching those and eating dinner like while watching those. You know what I mean? Like
right,
I
right,
asked
for
my
sure.
mom and dad, can I like watch these in the living room? Can I eat dinner in the living room and watch the rest of these? And of course there's Chiller. Was it Channel 5, Channel 9, and Channel 11?
Hmm.
Like the local channels always had the bet like there would be Hammer films in the afternoons, I think on Saturdays maybe.
Yeah, that's right. This
Yeah,
is before the days of cable TV kind of, having the monopoly on everything. All that stuff was out there everywhere.
I kind of prefer catching it like there was something magical about catching it when it was on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. It's more of a special event. It's like you better get it or you're going to miss it,
Yeah.
like a concert or a live performance of sorts,
Yeah. And I
as opposed
remember
to
even,
now we can download it and it's on our phone and we got
yeah,
it on
look at
DVD,
Prime.
which is good too. But
Yeah.
there's something about that,
I used to
and that's
just love the anticipation of it though, too. It'd be like the weekend's coming, you look in the TV guide or whatever, you would see that like, The Exorcist was going to be on or something like that. And you
right.
would,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, yeah, that
You
was
would
awesome.
plan, yeah, you would plan your whole weekend, your whole week around that. That's kind of what we're trying to bring back to cemetery cinema. That it's like a big event. So mark down your calendar, get over there. You don't want to miss it. Also, on another note, I think these movies and all films in general were meant to be seen with other people. In a big theater where you actually made an effort to get to. I think it definitely you get more out of it that way. There's no question about that, and that's something that comes up constantly during our audience discussions in Coney Island. How much how much different the film even comes across when you're seeing it with a group of people on a big screen. So regardless of all the technology that we have currently, there's nothing quite like that. So that's a
I
big
agree.
part of what we're trying to do with that as well.
Well, yeah,
But
even on a personal level, like for us, it's like, we live out in Jersey, so it's like we have to make an effort to come into Coney Island. It's not far, it's like a half hour, but like, it's got to get in the car, got to come out there. We usually meet up with some friends. They come, we have dinner. We got to make sure we get there in time to catch the beginning, the intro, the
yeah,
movie, and then
absolutely,
the
for
discussion.
sure.
It's like a whole solid night out. And it actually, you
Yeah,
get home, it's over pretty early too.
yeah, it's all those things. Only $10. A steal in today's economy.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, we're trying to bring back that old feeling of like you're going to the theater and it's something kind of special. Which is how we grew up, you and I, from what we're describing here. So we're trying to bring all that back. So that's kind of what got me into the horror genre as we were discussing. And then of course, things like Famous Monsters magazines.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was available, so you got to read about the films and learn about them even before you saw them. So that definitely was a tremendous impact. Also, the Monsters TV series a lot. That was had a big influence as well
Yeah,
on
the
the adaptation.
Monsters, Adam's Family and the Monsters probably, yeah, for my personal take on it, like horror movies scared me when I was a kid. like very when I was a young kid. I saw The Exorcist in a drive-in with my parents. Okay,
Mm.
explains a lot about who I am today, I guess. But
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
scared me, man. And then, but I think watching the Munsters and the Addams Family is what kind of like made horror like a little bit more approachable for me.
Yeah, I would agree, and a
Yeah,
little bit more fun.
a little bit more
Yeah,
fun. Yeah,
definitely. The Exorcist was the scariest film I saw that ever saw. That definitely scared the shit out of me. No
yeah,
question about that. Even I think about it now, kind of, have to look over both shoulders. I
yeah.
remember even before I saw the film, my parents had gone to see it, and I remember my mother's description of the film. The description, without even me seeing it, scared the daylights out of me before I even saw it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I saw it, and it was just a mind blower. No question about that.
I mean, it's
Um,
still my favorite. It probably is one of my favorite films, just because like at first how much it scared me, but then later on in life, just like how good of a film it is, and the story and the writing and all that sort of stuff is really what
yeah, no
grabbed me.
question about it. One of the greatest films of the 1970s, and the
Yeah,
1970s were chock full of great films. So yeah, but even separate from a horror standpoint, just from a general filmmaker standpoint, it's a phenomenal. It's a phenomenal film.
and
Uh,
Jason Miller's tortured face throughout that entire as Father Damien, it's just like the best.
yeah, absolutely. All the actors were top notch performances. We still think about it today, and it still has an impact. Yeah, that's one film that I don't find to be soothing. I was saying a lot of the old horror films are very soothing, and I can put them on before I go to sleep and all that. But that wasn't. That was a different thing. But then again,
Yeah,
that was a different time in horror, and the genre had gotten to a very different level than where it had been 20, 30, 40 years prior. But yeah, that's got to be the scariest film I ever saw, no question. And in a demented way, I always viewed that film as kind of like a precursor to like thrash metal or something.
I can
Just
see
seeing
that.
her screaming, "Ah, it burns," you know,
Yeah, in general,
all
like
that kind of
movies
stuff.
in the 70s in general, things got more gritty and like just more extreme, just
Yeah,
between the late 60s into the 70s.
yeah, no
You
question
had
about
like the
that.
Sam Peckinpah films, you got like movies like The Exorcist,
Hmm.
and all the the mob movies, all that sort of stuff. More of the element of like realism and extremity were really injected into movies in that era.
Yeah, very much so. Hyper realism,
Yeah.
no question about that. So yeah, we were fortunate to have grown up and caught the tail end of a lot of that stuff. So yeah, I'll never forget it. It's always something I revert back to. I don't know what I do without all this stuff, to be honest with you.
How much preparation you put in to each event? Because it's, you got the whole Q&A, you got all the details, you got all that sort of stuff.
Well, there actually is a lot. There is a lot of preparation, to be honest.
Yeah.
I get I have to get the whole presentation together. Um, I'm doing a lot of research, a lot of stuff I already knew about these films from being fan for so many years. But it takes time. A lot of time is spent on the computer, a lot of behind the scenes. Then the promotional aspect, of course, making sure people get there, getting a song together that I open up with. So it's a real labor of love, though. It really is, and time definitely goes into it. But it's cool. And then finally when it's time for the show, it's almost like it's like a celebration. Finally, we got here. Let me have a couple glasses of wine. We made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great. I always leave that place after those events in a really good mood and very very fulfilled and very happy and ready to get back to work again on the next one.
Yeah, no, it's
So
great. Yeah.
yeah, an obsession perhaps, the culmination of all this insanity that we're talking about. Yeah, I guess.
I definitely noticed some regulars too, which is cool. Like there's some definite
Oh,
like I've only
absolutely.
made it to maybe two or three so far, but you know, uh I noticed that there are regulars that show up through all the events, which is kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, absolutely. They're great. Very grateful for them. The Cemetery Cinema Army.
There
They
you
come
go.
wearing the T-shirts and all of that stuff. So yeah, they're great. Without them, this thing would never gotten off the ground. So yeah, yeah, it's phenomenal. It's a very lively audience. If you notice, people laughing, speaking out loud. It's great. We wanted something where it's like interactive, like not like you're just sitting there and watching the film and you got to be quiet. Almost like a Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of thing, but more based on classic horror, where the audience is kind of getting involved. I mean, not overdoing it, not to the point where nobody could listen to the film or anything like that, But it's the perfect group. I mean, it's Coney Island. This is the
Yeah.
vibe of Coney Island. Anything can happen, and it always does. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, one of the things I like too is you know, I got my little group of friends. We talk about horror movies. I got another podcast I do called Necromaniacs with you might know Mike Scandato actually from
Oh yeah,
Inhuman.
of
Yeah.
course. They're old friends.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, me and Mike actually do a horror podcast. As a matter of fact, we just did an episode right before I started talking to you. And
Oh,
you know, but it's always nice to hear someone else's opinion about things because you might not have thought of what they're thinking. And that's one of the
sure.
things I take away from going to these events.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel like I learned a lot from the audience. There's no question about it. After the event, I'm a lot more enriched than I was, before I went into it. So it's a great thing. It's about everybody. It's a group effort. I feel the show is. So and it's evolved into where we are now after throughout the last couple of years. So yeah, I can't wait till the next one. I'm ready to go.
Well, since you're mentioning the next one, this is coming out the week of the uh,
Yes,
the 13th of June, Friday the 13th,
that's right.
which I will not be attending because it's the day of my wedding, but
That's a big day.
I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you will be.
What movie are you showing this week?
This week we're showing Night of the Ghouls, one of the Ed Wood films.
Yeah,
Ed Wood is back by popular demand. We've shown Plan 9 from Outer Space a few times and Bride of the Monster. The people love the Ed Wood films for reasons not entirely known, I might add. But call those films what you will, they're bona fide phenomenons.
yeah,
So yeah, Night of the Ghouls is considered to be a remake of sorts of Bride of the Monster for the Ed Wood fans out there. Features Tor Johnson, of course,
yeah, great.
the 450-pound Swedish wrestler turned actor who worked with Ed Wood frequently. Without saying too much about the films, it's very Ed Wood, uh, and it's gonna be everything you're gonna think it's gonna be. Yeah, probably Plan 9 from Outer Space and the other film are more well known than this one, but this one is definitely up there. A funny story about this film: it was completed in 1958, I believe, but it wasn't released until 1984.
Really?
Make a long story short, I'll give away this one spoiler alert. But in classic Ed Wood, being true to himself, he basically couldn't afford to get the film out of the photo lab after they had finished it. So it remained there for all those years, and some film aficionado, big fan, had heard about it. He went and paid the bill, and then he owned the film and released it on a VHS in 1984. So this was considered to be somewhat of a lost film, or some people didn't even think it existed at all. So that's that's the story with that one.
Wow.
It's everything you would expect from an Ed Wood film. So I don't know if you're a fan of Ed Wood, or it's excruciating entertainment. But
Yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste. You know what I mean? It's like,
yes,
yeah, like
absolutely.
I dabble. You know what I mean? It's not my go-to, but I appreciate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, same here. No
Yeah,
question about
it's
that.
important to watch those movies, I should say.
Yeah, it's a part of it, and people are interested whenever the topic of Ed Wood comes up. The audience, you could see people are very interested,
Yeah,
and there's like a roar, like a mediocre roar that fills up the room when that comes up. But yeah, they definitely have their place. Bela Lugosi's last film was an Ed Wood film, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Again, the name comes up a lot. The story was that that film was created around footage that Ed Wood had taken of Bela before he died, and just made a movie around that. Plan 9 is considered to be the worst film ever made. Uh, but this Revenge of the Ghouls might actually be worse. Let's see what the audience has to say. But it's a lot of fun. It's more of a comedy show than anything else with the Ed Wood stuff. But like you said, it has its place in the genre. What exactly that place is, we're not sure, but it does have a place. So back by popular demand.
So you've done those two Ed Wood films. I was at the Dimension 13 showing. There was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde,
Yeah,
Night of the Living Dead. Um, you were saying you did The Last Man on Earth.
yeah, yeah, we sure did.
Did you guys
Um,
cover Carnival of Souls?
We did, yeah. We certainly did cover Carnival
Yeah.
of Souls. It was a lot of fun. It was funny. We actually heard from Candice Hilligoss, the main actress.
Yeah.
Her agent actually had contacted us.
Oh wow.
Yeah, when we were showing the film. My first thoughts were like, all right, we should have the cease and desist letter or something. But that wasn't the case. They were just interested in doing some cross promotion, which was great. And and she offered her services. Unfortunately, our budget really couldn't cover that. She's all the way, in California.
Right.
Would have, would have provided a flight and a hotel. Although, would anybody really want a hotel in Coney Island? I don't know. But so unfortunately, we couldn't go that route. But it was great. It was great hearing from her agent and the cross promotion that we did. But yeah, we showed that film. That's a real psychological kind of thriller, 1960s. Something about those 1960s horror films that they have a very specific vibe to them. And a lot of the 1960s films come up in cemetery cinema. Um, Another one, Spider Baby. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. I saw.
Yeah,
I didn't make it to that event though, but I've seen that before. Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty demented. Featuring Lon Chaney Jr., one of his last films, and Sid Haig, one of his first films. Pretty demented and really captures the 1960s spirit. So it seems like every decade in horror had its vibe to it, and its own kind of classification, its own style. So good.
Yeah, Carnival of Souls though is probably like that's one of my favorites, man. Like that's
Yeah,
there's just something very haunting and creepy about it.
very much so. Absolutely, no doubt about that. It was a big influence on the Twilight Zone. As a matter of fact, there was actually an episode in the Twilight Zone which had a similar plot called The Hitchhiker, and you saw some of the similar imagery. But yeah, it takes place in a demented carnival, as you recall, which was very appropriate, for us to be showing. But it definitely leaves you thinking. It's a very, very cerebral. I'm using that phrase a lot here tonight, but yeah, it was a great film. An honor to show it, um, and again, an honor to hear from the main actress.
What were some of the other highlights? Just so people have an idea, like the types of fare that you get into on one of these events.
Sure, lots of highlights. On the subject of Vincent Price, we had the honor of showing some of his other public domain films, um, which are great. The Bat. I don't know if anybody remembers that one. That's a lesser known one, but that really drew a big crowd. More like a murder mystery kind of vibe in it. It also featured Agnes Moorehead in it. So that's a great combination. Agnes Moorehead, of course, from Bewitched. She was great with Vincent Price, and it was a real kind of horror-based whodunit kind of thing, and the audience kind of followed her along. It was a big surprise there at the end. So that was great. The Last Man on Earth obviously was incredible, and of course, The House on Haunted Hill.
Right.
There was a lot of fun, uh, a lot of dark humor in that one. That was definitely a big highlight. The silent films are great. You mentioned Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. John Barrymore. That was demented, horrific. Some of his expressions and the way he pulled that off. The other silent films we've shown been equally as evoking. Lon Chaney is a big favorite. We had the pleasure of showing Phantom of the Opera and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. What can be said about those films hasn't been said already. Another film, the Forgotten, with Joan Crawford, which she's a demented carnival performer.
I don't think I've
And
ever seen that one actually. The
yeah, it was
Forgotten.
great. Yep, it was really something else. Without saying too much about the film, he portrays an amputee, but then, well, I don't want to give away the ending, but it's a real love triangle kind of thing. And this Joan Crawford, when she was a kid, just getting started in the business, it was actually recommended by our stage manager Patrick Wall over at Coney Island. He made a suggestion on that one, very good suggestion. So highly recommend that. We'll probably be showing more of the Lon Chaney films as well. And then, of course, Nosferatu, silent film, another trendsetter, groundbreaker. Cabinet of Dr. Caligari,
Oh, it's a great
1920. Yeah,
classic.
considered the first horror film, or among the first horror films of all times. Again, another mind-altering experience, and a great example of the German expressionist kind of style. So we really cover the gamut with a lot of different things. And then, of course, things from the 30s and 40s. A lot of the films that Bill Lugosi did in the 40s with Monogram Pictures, The Ape Man, Devil Bat, the list goes on and on and on. So yeah, each film I try to make each one different than the previous one. Another outstanding one, the She Creature. I think you were there for that one, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was something else as well. Getting back to the late, that's a more of a late 50s kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
it's a late 50s vibe to that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's something for everybody, and there's a lot of different colors in the palette uh, in cemetery cinema. What we're looking to do.
So how do you you're obviously you're a Bela Lugosi fan. Uh, Now how do you think Christopher Lee stacks up to him as Dracula?
Well, Christopher Lee's phenomenal. There's no question about that. He's running a close second.
Yeah.
There was one Hammer film that's in public domain, and we showed it. The Satanic Rites of Dracula. Remember that
Yes.
one?
Yep.
Dracula comes into the modern day. One of I think that was the last one Christopher Lee did. He wasn't really too happy with those films after a while. He was getting kind of burnt out on it. You know,
Well, he
the
did like
scripts,
10 of them, right? Didn't he do like 10 Draculas, I think?
something like that. Yeah, he had had enough, especially after to that last one. This one and the one before that, Dracula AD in 1972, was when they decided to bring Dracula into like the 1970s London. So that was the straw that broke the camel's back
Yeah, yeah,
for Sir Christopher Lee.
yeah. We actually covered that on Necromaniacs, I think last year. That
Oh, yeah,
was yeah,
awesome.
me and Mike talked about that one. So yeah, it was a fun movie, but it's definitely they were losing the plot a little bit, I think, around that time.
Yeah, very much so. They'll be taking liberties. Well, let's
Yeah.
put it that way. Christopher Lee always felt that they should have just kept going back to Bram Stoker, which was great. That was his frustration. He always wanted the producers to kind of just go back to that and get some of that dialogue and that vibe. But the producers had a different idea of what they wanted to do, and he felt that after a while he was just becoming just like a henchman in the film. A lot of times he didn't even really say that much. They just wanted him in there. But whatever. I mean, his presence on stage is just a mind blower. There's nothing quite like it. When you see him on the big screen, it's just incredible, tremendous inspiration. So I'm a big fan. Him and Bela are neck and neck. I mean,
Yeah,
Bela has the seniority or whatever,
right.
but yeah, it's really something else. I remember I had the pleasure to meet Christopher Lee
Really?
when he released, yeah, a while back. He released a book called Tall, Dark, and Gruesome.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
He's well, aside from being a an actor, he's got books, audiobooks, music.
oh yeah, no question about that. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
done some metal recordings, some
yeah.
spoken word. Yeah, I mean, he's quite the Renaissance man. Yeah, incredible. An incredible talent. So yeah, and all the Hammer films are awesome. I can't say enough
Actually,
good things about it.
if I'm not mistaken, I think he had something. He was in like an Exorcist audiobook.
Really, was he? Okay, that's news to me. That's
Yeah,
very good casting. Very
if I
good idea.
remember correctly. Yeah, I definitely should like research that. But if I remember correctly, he was in like an Exorcist audiobook.
Wow, keep me posted on that.
Yeah,
Definitely want
well,
to check
I'll
that
see if I could dig it up to more information on that. Yeah.
out. Okay, cool, awesome. Another great Christopher Lee film we showed from the late '50s in black and white, Horror Hotel. For all
Yep.
the
Oh yeah.
Misfits fans,
Oh
that's where
yeah.
they then got the name from, obviously. So that was a real satanic witchcraft kind of a thing, with Christopher Lee playing, a very satanic role, obviously. So yeah, that was a lot of fun showing. Um, yeah, so it was a lot of it was set in old day Salem, and then it goes into the modern day, goes back and forth. So that was great. Always great to have Christopher Lee involved in anything. So yeah, tremendous fan.
Satanic Christopher Lee. Was he in The Devil Rides Out?
That's a good question. I should know that, but I'm not exactly sure.
Actually, I think yeah, he was. I just looked it up.
Okay,
Yeah, he was.
okay,
One of the things I didn't forget in life was that he was in that.
okay.
And I also learned that the great Richard Matheson wrote the screenplay for that.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Richard Matheson, who wrote the Last Man on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And ended up writing some of the Twilight Zone episodes as well. Yeah, another tremendous talent. I think he was actually from Brooklyn, if I'm not
Matheson.
mistaken. Yeah,
Yeah, I think you're right about that actually.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's just so much great stuff and like so many great people to celebrate here, and they're all gone. Maybe that adds to the mystique, but they should always be remembered. We want to definitely keep them alive, forever, maybe even longer than that. You know?
So this event on Friday, uh, let's give us all the details. And when does it start? You
Sure.
know, like where can people find out about other events that are happening in the future, that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, we always start at 7:30. As we discussed before, I start off with a musical selection. We'll be incorporating some original material coming up if we get the mixes done in time. I'm singing the tracks, obviously, for
Yeah.
the time being. It's not the full band or anything like that. So we start off with that, go into the film, the audience discussion where everybody's participating, and then the best scream contest, of course. We end up on that, and we have merchandise, T-shirts, etc. Always good to talk to everybody and meet everyone. We want everyone to come over and say goodnight, sign the mailing list, et cetera, et cetera. It's a real community kind of a thing. The best place to purchase tickets and find out more information, ConeyIsland.com, the official website for Coney Island, USA, which is where the film is being taken place at the Sideshows Theater. Also, my social media pages. There's a Cemetery Cinema page on Facebook, and then my personal Baron Misuraca pages on Facebook and Instagram, which basically just cover, the film screenings and information about Carnivore AD and other stuff that I do. That's basically what my online presence is all about. Not posting, what I had for dinner or talking about politics or anything like that.
Right.
You can get that anywhere. So that, yeah, that's all the information is there. All the dreadful details. As I say, there's a Facebook invite, pictures, video clips, promos, everything you've ever wanted to see and things you didn't want to see. So that's the best place to go for that.
Just recently, I caught this thing on, I think it was on your Instagram, Unnatural Causes and Yellow Weight Productions. What's that all
Yes,
about, man?
that's a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out. But that's Yellowway Productions is independent film company of an old friend of mine, Jim Haggerty, who I've known for a while and worked with him in the past on a bunch of occasions. He did some regular events at the Cinema Arts Center in Long Island, independent film festivals, and he's an independent filmmaker doing a lot of strange and unique things. Unnatural Causes is an anthology of a bunch of short horror tales. Each focusing on ways to die that are unnatural. Make a long story short, my role in the film is essentially the narrator. It's almost like a Rod Serling kind of thing
Oh,
where I'm almost narrating, telling you a little bit about the thing before and afterwards, before each segment. And there's a little bit of a segment with me in the beginning without giving up too much of the storyline. It was a lot of fun to shoot. We just finished up the scenes this past weekend, so it's fresh off the presses. I think while the filming is done, the editing phase is coming in next, and it should be a lot of fun. There's a lot of great, a lot of stuff to make you think, a lot of action, excitement, insanity, weirdness. That's what you could always expect from Jim, and it was a lot of fun doing it. We shot the scenes that you saw online was shot actually in an actual funeral parlor. I'm still shocked that they actually let us go in there and shoot that. Special thanks to them, the New Hyde Park funeral parlor there. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's almost like Jim's version of almost like a Tales from the Crypt kind of a thing. Like I guess I'm like a crypt vampire crypt keeper kind of a character, which is always a good thing to be. So yeah, very cool. Thank you for asking about that. More on that as it develops.
yeah,
But
definitely, man. It sounds interesting. And is that something you're ever interested in, is acting, or is that something that just sort of comes naturally to you, or how'd you get into that?
I guess all of the above. Definitely something I've been interested in for a while. I've had roles in different independent films, throughout the years. One of my favorites, a film called Survive, which was kind of based off of like a post 9/11 world, put together by my good friends Evan and Liam Macrogiannis. I got to play a vampire goth singer in the film, a real stretch for me, but yeah, that's one of my favorite films that I've done. And little things here and there. Unfortunately, a lot of things that I got involved with didn't really see the light of day, which is kind of something that happens in the independent film genre for various reasons. But I guess it all just ties into being a fan of films for as long as I've been, and being on stage and being a front man, you're kind of I don't want to say that you're an actor, but some of the dynamic is the same. So it seems like it's a logical progression or regression. I don't know. So yeah, it's just another vehicle for the for conceptualization. Let's put it that way. And also, I'll do anything to avoid getting a regular job. So you know,
I hear you, man.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. I'm always a big supporter of any kind of independent, efforts like that. So I'm gonna definitely keep me in the loop on all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, we sure will. Absolutely. There's a premiere planned probably at some point next year. Now they're
Nice.
going into the editing phase. It's done on a limited budget, etc.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think there's some good stuff in there, and there's a morality to it in the end, which is what kind of grabbed me about it. So yeah, it was a great thing. Just kind of a last minute thing. I was just added into this thing just a few weeks ago when Jim called me up. But I mean, what am I going to say no to not being unnatural causes, right? So yeah, we went into it. The spirit of the independent film genre, do it yourself, which is kind of what hardcore was all about.
Yeah, no,
Originally,
absolutely.
right? Yeah, you just went and you did it. You didn't really have any money. You didn't really know how to play sometimes, but you just did it and you put something out there. So it goes to show you the arts are for anybody. You don't have to have a big budget or be have a big studio or have talent, like in the case of Ed Wood. Um, we always say we always say the Ed Wood films are triumph of will over talent. But that's Ed Wood. But we definitely had a lot of talented people involved in the films that I've been a part of. I'm honored and happy to say. So yeah, that's cool. It all ties in. It all ties in together. Um, so it's a great thing. This is what life is all about. I think to get involved and do things that you love to do, and to if you can make a living or a partial living, then that's a great thing, right? What more can you ask for?
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Baron. I appreciate your time, man. And
Yeah,
yeah, I
my
found out
pleasure,
about
man.
some stuff that I didn't know about, which is good.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great discussion. We could do like five different podcasts for this. I think
Yeah, no,
So
totally.
it's a great thing. Something else I wanted to mention real quick: the
Yeah.
comic book genre. That's
Oh,
something else I would like to pick up.
okay. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, no question about that. And I actually do have a comic book in Flesh and Spirit that I wrote and was released in affiliation with a descendant of Bram Stoker, which is a tremendous honor, and his company, the Stoker Verse. So I want to put that out there as well, Flesh and Spirit. It's still available. We did some reprinting as well. And again, it's great to be affiliated with Vampire Royalty. I mean, it all began with Bram Stoker. So a shout out to them, especially to Chris McCauley, who is the colorist and does a lot of behind the scenes stuff over there. So a special shout out to him. Again, like I just said, we could do like five different podcasts here
Oh, dude, I love
but I'll
horror
spare you.
comics, man. I love horror comics, man. I like Tomb of Dracula, creepy,
Yes, oh
eerie,
yes, yeah, yeah. The stuff that Marvel did, Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night.
Werewolf by Night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
the
question about
Warren
that.
Warren titles, like the creepy and eerie comics.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what In Flesh and Spirit pretty much was based on. My book. It was all based on the Marvel comics, Vampirella,
Yep.
all that kind of stuff from the '70s. So that was great, and the main character is me, which is great. So it's almost like I'm just delving into my comic fantasy world kind of a thing. So yeah,
Yeah, it's
they
like
don't
the
make a lot of movies.
70s, similar to films. I feel like some of the best comics came, especially horror comics, came out in the 70s and early 80s. Definitely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, absolutely. And the way Marvel kind of adapted the old Universal films into comic book form, putting their own spin on it with Tomb of Dracula, like you said, Werewolf by Night, etc. Um, it's great, great stuff. Very riveting. I remember as a kid just being totally enthralled by the Werewolf by Night comics and all the titles we talked about. I couldn't wait till the next issue, and it really just brought me to another place. So yeah, great
One of,
memories.
one of the funny things about those Warren black and white comics, they had like a black and white version. It was like their kind of rip off of heavy metal. It was called like 1984 or something like that.
Right, right,
And then
right. Yeah,
1984 came and went, and so that wasn't the future anymore. And then they
yeah,
changed
that's
they
right.
changed it to 1994.
Right, yeah. Just keep getting a different year for the futuristic
Yeah,
time frame. Yeah, well,
yeah.
that's
It's
great. That's
just
like forced creativity.
oh man,
So
that's awesome. I'm definitely gonna like. Can you order that, or is it like a comic shop, or like what?
right now it's pretty much on order, and we
Okay.
uh, we have it at the Cemetery Cinema shows.
Oh,
Although we're
okay.
actually sold out at the moment, so I'm waiting for for another batch to be printed. So, but those will be back.
Oh, cool.
And,
Awesome.
like I said, it's based on everything we just talked about.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a great thing. I'm just going to keep on, and it's a lot of it is set in Coney Island.
Oh,
So we
cool.
got to throw that in there as well. So
That's a great setting for a horror comic. Definitely.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, come on, like we said, anything can happen there, and it always does. So yeah, so it's a great thing.
Well, awesome, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you the next event, man. And
Likewise, likewise.
yeah, we'll definitely stay in touch and all this stuff.
Yeah, no question about that. We actually have some surprises coming up for the next. Last thing I'll say, I promise. Some surprise films. I don't want to mention anything yet, but we're branching out on a few things here. So more on
Nice.
that as it develops. Stay tuned for more dreadful details, as we say.
No, I'm
But
looking forward to it, man.
yeah, likewise, it's going to be monstrous. And also, Michael, I don't know if I should say this on the air. Congratulations on your
Yeah,
Friday the 13th wedding.
I
That's pretty
appreciate
intense.
that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
All the
Thank you
best.
so
Yeah.
much, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All the best.
All right, man. Have a good night now. Take care.
All right. You too.
Bye.
See you later.